Oh. 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 Gurur Brahma, Gurur Vishnu, Gurur Devo Maheshwara, Gurureva Param Brahma, Asmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Chinmayam Yapyat Sarvam Trailokyam Sacharacharam Tat Padam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Tvameva Mata Shapita Tvameva Tvameva bandhuscha sakha tvameva Tvameva vidya dravinam Tvameva Tvameva sarvam mama deva deva Tvameva sarvam mama deva deva. Jai Guru. Yatha sarvani bhutani pratibhanti stithani cha yatraivo pashamam yanti tasmai satyatmane namaha. Ooh, don't knock the lamp over. All right. So where are we in our text?
Chapter 13, number 33. It's the second 33. There are two of them that are named 33, and it's on page 137.
Okay.
Yes.
You ready?
Yeah.
Go.
Section 3, Harina Prabodhanam, the awakening by Hari. Evam tasmin astu vishrante, Hari evam vyachintayat. When he was thus tranquil, Hari, the god Vishnu, reflected thus.
Going on.
Dvaitya raje shamam yate, Ch13 sura dhruvam, Shama metya gamishyanti, Mokshakhyam padam uttamam. When the demon king goes to the state of tranquility, the demigods without enemies will surely go to the highest abode called moksha or liberation, having attained to quietude.
So the literary device here is what keeps the world going is the tension between the asuras and the devas, the eternal battle in heaven. It's a metaphor, good and bad, just and unjust, right and wrong, virtue and vice that goes on in people's heads. So if the king of the demons attains moksha, devas won't have anything to do. Off they go, Svarga. They get released. There's a problem here because the world will end. So let's see what Hari Vishnu does about all this.
Deva bhave phala syuhi, bhuvi yajna tapakriyah, kriyasva topashantasu, bhulokopya stameshyati. In the absence of the demigods, religious sacrifices and austerities will indeed become fruitless or unproductive. When such rituals are diminished or extinguished, even the earth will come to an end.
Yes. So Hari is meditating that all the motivations for people in the ritualistic part of the Vedas, just bringing it up into the 21st century. When people are content, nothing will go on because the chief engine for the world to keep going is what? Desire. Yeah. If everybody's without desire, the whole thing comes tumbling down. And Hani says, this is not necessarily a good thing. So, there's lots of beautiful implication in this. We tend to look at our spiritual ignorance, our suffering as a bad thing. But it is. So what it is perfect for what it is. The Christians have this notion of original sin. Something bad happened. That serpent devil tempted Eve, and that's what all the problems came from. And the suffering is bad because there's evil in the world. But really, yoga doesn't posit that. Maya, the world as it is what it is. And the only modern example I can give is we all like to go to the movies. So if you go to a romance movie and people fall in love and it's so wonderful, oh, we love that. Or you can go to an action flick and all the adrenaline. Some people even like horror movies. You guys like horror movies?
No.
A lot of people do. And, or you can be really sad. But because at some level we know it's just a movie, we can go through the great range of human emotions. And there can be a kind of bliss at the same time that you're bawling your eyes out. Oh, it's such a good movie. I cried so much. Just had that experience. So the invitation here is, it doesn't really need to be fixed. Now, if you have the desire to make a difference in the world, that's part of a movie. Go for it. But it is what it is. With the Asuras on one side and the Devas on the other side, this is all the work of the infinite. Any thoughts on this?
I just see how when we get caught up in good, bad, that's how we create the world. And it's a really good metaphor.
Oh, yeah.
When there's, acquiescence or serenity, the world isn't very dense.
There was one very famous saint, and he had disciples, and his son died, and he's weeping profusely. And one of his disciples says, I thought this was all an illusion. And he says, yeah, but this is a super illusion. So he wept. No big deal. Again, it's not about aragya, becoming unfeeling. It's vairagya. There's the difference. Now, each one of us works this out for themselves. All right, next verse.
असंसार प्रसंगोऽथ तस्य नाशे भविष्यति नेह श्रेयो न पश्यामि जगत्येवं शमं गते. Then there will be the contingency of the absence of worldly life in its or the earth's destruction. When the world is thus extinguished, I do not see in prospect any goodness.
Yes. So the world is supposed to continue through its cycles, the wheel of time, Kala Chakra. What he's saying here is, I'm not sure it's a good thing for the whole thing to grind to a halt. So what's he going to do about it? He is honey. Let's go on.
इति संचित्य द्वैत्येन्द्रम् पाञ्चजन्यवरे पाञ्चजन्यरवेण सह प्रबोध्य तमुवाचेदं साधो स्मर निजाकृतम्. Thus having thought, he, the god Vishnu, waking up the demon king with the sound of his divine conch Panchajanya, told him thus: Virtuous one, remember your innate form or character.
So he brings him out of samadhi, tickles his mind awake, and he remembers his form as a demon king. What's his job as a demon king? To F things up. What he's supposed to do. Going on.
जीवन मुक्तेन भवता राज्य एव हि तिष्ठता क्षेपणीया गतोद्वेगम् आकल्पान्तम् इयं तनुः. By you, who are liberated while living, and indeed remaining only in your kingdom, this body is fit to be cast up to the end of the world without anxiety.
So demons have a relative immortality, as do devas. So you got to stay in this body to do your demon king thing. That's your job. Going on.
कृशोति दुःखिमूढोऽहम् इति चान्याश्च भावनाः मतिं यस्या वलुम्पन्ति मरणं तस्य राजते. I am weak or insignificant, extremely distressed and perplexed or foolish. To him whose mind these and such other thoughts devour or crush, death appears splendid.
Death appears what?
Splendid.
Yes. So for the person for whom ego is thick, they have depression. Their life is terrible. Nothing is working. They want to get out. A suicidal personality. Now, there is a state that yogis can get to where they have renounced the vast majority of their desires, but still hung on to some aversions. And then everything is gray, everything is tasteless. It's all like ashes. It's a very nihilistic kind of state. we got to be very careful because it can be the result of very deep ignorance, Thomas. Or remember the very first part of this book. Remember, Rama leaves the palace and he goes out and he sees the fundamental vanity of the world. And he comes back totally dejected. Why should I bother to do anything? It's all pointless. And Vasishtha says he doesn't need antidepressants, he needs enlightenment. So only you for yourself can discern the difference between them. Many people who in fact have an intense spirit of renunciation are ripe for yoga, but the psychotherapist can't discern that. Doesn't have the vision to see it. Any thoughts on this? All right, going on.
Yasya naham krito bhava buddhiyasya na lipyate yasama sarva bhuteshu jivitam tasya shobhate. His life is splendid, to whom there is no egotistic conception, whose intellect is not tainted, and who is equal towards all beings.
So the opposite is the person who has abandoned the personal sense of self, who has no attachment to any experience, and can freely embrace the world because it's like a movie. Life is splendid. It was just wonderful to watch Swamiji. He laughed all the time. He found the world and the people in it very funny. And he loved intense sensations. I mean, one of them is he loved to drive in fast cars. Well, there's not very much renunciation, you know. He didn't have to. He loved chocolate. He loved spicy South Indian food. You know, he set himself this great work to do in India. India is now free. Now we need to free Indians. Tirelessly. Year after year, all year long. Wrote 40 books, I think. Founded hospitals and schools and microeconomies. For him, life is splendid. The Mahabhogi, a great enjoyer. Any thoughts on this?
It seems like when you start to see the unreality of the world, there's an amazement that it shows up at all.
Yes, good,
It's like,
good way to put it.
wow, this is incredible.
Now, Other Mahatmas, they're drawn to great simplicity, like Ramana Maharshi. I was talking with Natasha the other night. You know, she spent quite a bit of time at Amma's ashram in Kerala. And, you know, thousands and thousands and thousands of devotees. They just stand in the line and they come up and they get a hug, and she just says one or two words and the next person comes. She does this for hours and hours and hours. I can remember when I was there, of course, this is back in 94. This is what, 30 years ago. At the end of the day, you know, she was all just rumpled, with sweat stains, and her hair all messed up, you know. She was just like a rag doll. They wrung her out. I mean, it was Carl. Yeah. Totally detached. Totally detached.
It wasn't tired. It just same level of smile and energy for everyone.
Yeah. Have you been had her
Yeah,
national?
we met her last year.
Yeah. Same thing when you were there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Amazing. Just amazing. Next verse.
आशापाशानि बुद्धोऽन्त इतेष इतश्चेतश्च मीयते यो विलोलमनोवृत्त्या मरणं तस्य राजते. To him whose inner self is bound by hopes and snares of attachment, and who is led or directed here,
Who's what?
led or directed here and there on
Okay.
account of unsteady or disordered thoughts, death appears flattered.
Yes. So for the person who's tyrannized by the inner 2-year-old, the indulgent tendency of the mind, I must have it this way, I'll never have it that way. And you're just led around with a collar around your neck and someone's got you on a chain. No freedom. But how does Shakespeare say it? To grunt and sweat under a weary life. That's how so many people live. Next verse.
योऽन्तः शीतलया बुद्ध्या रागद्वेषविमुक्तया साक्षिवत् पश्यतीदं हि जीवितं तस्य शोभते. His life is splendid, who indeed sees this visible universe like a witness with an intellect which is cool within and liberated from passion and hate.
Yeah. So the same idea, this beautiful poetry. You watch the movie, watch the Leela, the play. The body, mind, intellect plays its part in the divine drama, with its shares of joys and sorrows, successes and failures, honors and dishonors. No resistance to whatever comes down the road. Next one.
तदो Tishtasuraadhisha Singhasanam Upashraya Yavat Merudhara Yavat Chandra Kamandalam. Therefore, get up, king of demons, resort to your throne. As long as the mountain Meru exists, as long as the earth survives, and as long as the spheres of the moon and sun exist.
So the person who's Jivan Mukta, liberated while yet alive, does not need to leave this world. So the way I like to frame it, you need to have death on one shoulder. What if you got a terminal diagnosis and you were going to die in a week? Well, you want to make peace with everybody. If I'm not talking to so and so, that's so stupid. Make peace with people. What about all my stuff? Nobody takes a U-Haul to the grave or the crematorium, unless you're an Egyptian. They did. So we want to be ready to die. Go away. But then on the other shoulder, what if you're going to be in the body for the rest of the eternity? Well, you should probably pay the mortgage and the PG&E bill. Take care of business. But it's all going to be okay. So the Jivan Mukta is willing to be without the body and willing to be with the body. It doesn't matter. She gives the big middle finger to the whole bailiwick. Sport with it. Don't take it seriously. And by all means, don't postpone your peace of mind, your quality of life. This is it, right here, right now. And if it's your karma to be a demon king, get back on your throne. And if it's your karma to scrub pots and pans, scrub pots and pans. Going on.
Akhandita Guna Shradhi Tavat Raja Bhavanadha Ityuktva Pundari Kaksha Tatraivanta Vimayayau. Sinless one, so long do you remain a king as to be proud of your everlasting or unbroken virtues. Having said thus, the lotus-eyed Vishnu disappeared there itself.
Yeah, so go do your demon king thing. So you may be head of a startup. Someone may say, Wendy, come help us in our restaurant. We don't know what to do. Please. You may get the intuition. Okay, I can help you. You may be a mummy. and say, screw having a job, I'm a mummy. Who's to say? You'll know. But in the end, nothing in this world is what's going to do it. Now, listen very carefully. In the end, desire itself is not even an impediment to realization. We don't tell this to people early in their practice. It's attachment, it's clinging, it's insistence that's problematic. I like to make the distinction between a preference and an insistence. Of course, you're going to have preferences. And each one of us have got to go through the interior work. Is it a preference, or am I really attached to the outcome? Each person works this out for themselves. Any thoughts on this? Going on. Next verse.
Sri Rama Uvacha Katham Prabuddham Bhagavan Prahladasya Mahatmanah Pare Pade Dridam Linam Panchajanya Swanair Manah. Sri Rama said, Revered one, how was the mind of the high-souled or noble Prahlada, which was firmly absorbed in the highest abode, awakened by the sound of Pancha Jaya, the divine couch?
So it isn't Bali, it's Prahlada. I got the wrong demon king. There's several of them in this text. So how is it that the conch brought Prahlada out of samadhi? Let's see what the answer is.
Vasishtha Uvacha Prishta Bijopama Bhuyo Janmankura Vivarjita Hridi Jivan Hridi Jivat Vimuktanam Shuddha Vasati Vasana. Vasishtha said, in the heart of the liberated while living, there dwells that pure mental impression which resembles the roasted seed and is destitute of the sprout of numerous birds.
So this confuses lots of people. If all desire is prompted by vasana, and vasana is an indication of our ignorance, if I see the Jivan Mukta moving through life and she wants to do this and he wants to do that, that must mean they're not realized. You take it to its conclusion. When you attain realization, you should drop dead. If you don't drop dead, then you're not done yet. And the scriptures say no. The power of avasana, its first power, is avarana shakti, the veiling, the non-apprehension of myself. If you are sthita prajna, if your wisdom is steady, then the thought of or desire can arise. And if it doesn't rob you of self-experience, if it doesn't confuse you into thinking that the satisfaction of that desire is the answer to all my problems, then we call these roasted seeds. So the example is this. Now, I've never tried it, But so I, for example, have cumin seeds, that I have in my spice rack. If I were to plant those, would they grow?
Probably.
But if I put them in the frying pan and roast them, will they grow? So a roasted vasana cannot sprout as spiritual ignorance. So in the end, don't worry too much about your inclination to do this or do that. The first power of a real vasana that's operative is non-apprehension of my essential nature. Then immediately, Vikshepa Shakti, I think I'm a person. Focus on this. If I think I'm a person, I'm deluded. Man, burn up that vasana. The other image that the scriptures will use, like a length of rope that is burnt. Now, I know you guys go camping a lot. Do you have things like a Coleman lantern, or do you use electric lanterns?
Electric these days.
But have you ever used a Coleman lantern,
Yeah.
lantern with kerosene or oil in it?
Yeah, back in India, actually.
Yeah. So you have the cotton wick. And if you let the oil or the kerosene dry up, what happens to the wick?
It remains like in the form of the original shape, but it's made out of ash.
Yeah. So you can't take it and tie it around your finger. If you touch it, it goes. Now, the pun here is guna. Guna means both a quality of mind and a rope. That's two meanings. So the stita prajna, the person of steady wisdom, cannot be bound by the qualities of the mind. They're like burnt lengths of rope that can't tie us up. And again, what's operative? Do you forget who you are? Do you get identified and attacked? Subtle teaching here. Any thoughts on this? Going on.
Api varsha sahasrante taye vantaravasthata sati dehe prabudhyante kuto pyuchunya yakshanaihi. Wherefore, even at the end of 1,000 years, when the body exists, they wake up slowly, even with that lofty inner state.
Yes. So even if you're in samadhi for a long, long time, if there's still prarabdha karma of a particular lifetime, the mind will tickle. It will return from that state, and you go about life. And there's that very famous Zen proverb: before enlightenment, I chopped wood and carried water. After enlightenment, I chopped wood and carried water. Nothing changes and everything changes. Any thoughts on this? Going on.
इति श्रीवशिष्ठसङ्ग्रहे प्रह्लादोपाख्यानं नाम त्रयोदशः सर्गः. Thus ends the 13th chapter titled The Story of Prahlada in the Aboriginal view.
Okay, let's start the next one.
Chaturdashah Sargah, chapter 14, Gadhyopakyanam, the story of Gadhi. Section 1. Swasya Shwapachat Vadesh Darshana, seeing himself as one of a degraded caste or dog feeder. Vasishtha Uvacha Jaganmaya Prapanchasya Vaichitriya Pratipattaye Iti Hasam Imam Vakshye Shrenush Vava Hitonadha. Vasishtha said, for the perception of the variety or strangeness of the display of worldly illusion, I shall relate this legend. Sinless one, hear attentively.
So here's another story going on.
Kosaleshu dvija kaschit guni gadhi iti shrutah akantham ambu nirmagna tapaschakre tato harihi agatyoche dvijotishta grihana bhimatam varam. There was a certain Brahmana in the Kosala country who was virtuous and known as Gadhi. He did religious austerity immersed in water up to the neck. Then Hari, or God Vishnu, coming near him, said, Brahmana, get up, receive the desired boon.
So again, this austerities to propitiate a deity and get a boon is a literary device. But the idea here is the one he did is he was, would go out in the cold river up to his neck. That was his austerity. Now, this is a classist tale because it's all going to talk about the caste system. Let's take it gently and understand the deeper import. The deeper import of the story is it is our desire that leads us into a field of experience. Let me see if I can give an example. So you are, Wendy, the child of a PhD, right?
Mhm.
You came from an academically aristocratic family.
Mhm.
Did you go to college?
Nope,
Did you finish high school?
nope.
Yeah. What'd you go do?
Well, first, a lot of naughty stuff, and then I ended up going to cooking school.
But the point is, it was your desire that led you into the incarnation of a naughty girl
Mm.
and then cooking school.
Mm.
So this is the deeper import. Likewise, someone couldn't come from working class people. You could have immigrant parents who, well, my housekeeper, Sada, she cleans houses for a living. And her daughter's in college. Yeah, pretty cool. So it is our desire and our actions that lead us to various incarnations. Here, think of them as various fields of experience. Now, there's an important point here, which many of us miss. The end is the means in a different form. The N is the means in a different form. So I have a particular fellow I'm working with, and he loves music, and he thinks he has somewhat of a gift. So he's now owns 3 guitars, but he doesn't practice. He doesn't play them. I did that. I bought a mandolin once. I was going to learn to play the mandolin and sing, Renaissance ballads and things like that. I bought a concertina once and I was going to, sing Neapolitan songs on street corners. But are you getting my point?
Oh, yeah.
Just having
Yeah.
the stuff. You may know somebody who buys copper pots.
Yeah.
Doesn't make you a chef.
Yeah.
One of my favorite people I've worked with is sitting right there where Wendy was. And he was working as a college administrator, low level, for like 15 or 20 bucks an hour. And had a college degree, living with his mother, because you can't afford to live on $15 an hour in the Bay Area. And the question I ask so frequently, if you had all the money, well, before that, I said, what do you want to do with your life? And he says, well, I want to sing. I want to be a performer. But what I need to do is work to get enough money so I don't have to work, so then I can have my musical career. And I said to him, if you work for 15, 20 years as an academic administrator, in 20 years, you're going to be a very good academic administrator. You will not be a musician. I stunned him. And I said, if you had all the money in the world, all the talent in the world, all the connections in the world, all the education in the world, what would you be doing with your life? And he said, I'd sing. And I said, well, then why the hell aren't you? And he had this huge shift in his life. Now, it's interesting. This past June, he just finished an MFA.
Wow.
And he's thinking of going off to New York to be auditioning for Broadway, all sorts of doing a lot of experimental music, and he's got a very rich life in the arts because the end is the means in a different form. I don't know why I got onto that, but it's a very important principle in life. But we don't postpone life. I'm going to get all this stuff and then I'll do yada, yada, yada. May happen, probably won't. All right, next verse.
Gadhirvacha Soya Srishtam Imam Mayam Bhagavan Paramatmikim Drashto Michami Sansara Namni Ashcharyakarinayim. Gandhi said, Lord, I desire to see this illusory power of the Supreme Spirit created by you, which is called worldly existence and which causes wonder.
Okay, so again, our literary device. Remember our 3 questions we're dealing with in this book. Who am I? What is this world? How has it come about? So Gabi here is focused on questions 2 and 3. So let's see what happens. See what Hadi does.
Imam drakshasi mayam tvam ityuktvan tad dadhe harihi. You will see this illusory power. Thus, having said, Hari or the god Vishnu disappeared.
Oh, that didn't work out very well. You just left. Let's see what happens next.
Snanartham ekada gadi mamaja janta jalam tada apashyat mritamatmanam swagrihe bandhubihi vritam. Once, Gadi dipped underwater for the purpose of bathing. Then he saw himself dead in his house, surrounded by kinsmen.
So he's sitting there in the river, taking a bath for ritual purity. He puts his head under the water, and while his head's under the water, all of a sudden, he'd be dead, surrounded by relatives. This is kind of like the Matrix, Inception. Let's see what happens next.
Tato nitva shashas tato nitva shamashannate chakrustam bhasmasat shavam atha pashyadasau bhuyo punagrama nivasitnam shvapachanam grihe jatam atmanam kantayayutam. Thereafter, they, the kinsmen, having carried that corpse to the cremation ground, reduced it to ashes. Then he saw himself again as born in the house of outcasts, dwelling in the village of the Hunas or barbarians, and endowed with a wife.
So he's a Brahmin who gets cremated. Then he sees himself in this rural tribal family. We don't have to put a caste coloration on it. Going on.
Tato jarathatam yatam mrityuna harita bandhadam. Then he saw himself as having become old, with his relations taken away by death.
And then so to us all, we get old. God, does it happen fast? Then your loved ones go. Let's see what happens to him next.
Tata shoka paritatmam nijam desham vihayasa nagaram prapya kiranam rajamarge sthita tada. Thereafter, with his mind encompassed by grief, having left his country and reached the city of the Kiras, or the country of Kashmir, he stood on the royal highway. Then,
So he leaves this tribal family, goes walking through the mountains, and he ends up in Kashmir. And he's standing by the side of the road. Now let's see what happens.
Mrite Rajani Rajartham Viharantam Itastatah Astinam Sadarshatha Karane Ada Tamgaja Skande Nyaveshayat Modat Nedu Dundubhayastada Evam Gavalanam Mansau Kirarajo Babhuvaha. Then he saw an elephant going about here and there for the sake of finding a king, when the king of that country was dead. Thereafter, that elephant, having taken hold of him with its trunk, seated him on its body with delight. Then kettle drums sounded. Thus he verily became the king of the Kiras by name Gavala.
So the ritual in this Kashmiri country was when the king died, it wasn't his children who ascended the throne. They sent out the royal elephant, who was a buddy of the king. And they just followed him around. So here the elephant sees Gadi, the outcast, grabs him by his trunk, puts him there on top of his head. Okay, this guy's our new king. We have no idea who this dude is. Let's see what happens.
Ashtau varshani rajyam sa chakara mantri pujitah. He ruled the country for 8 years, respected by the ministers.
So he did a good job. He was a good king. So even a tribal person can have skills that he may not know about. Ministers respected him. Going on.
Yadricha yaikadam tam tu nirgatam tyakta bhushanam alakshya shwapacha kaschit prochecha chirabandhava darshanena tavadhyaham param nirvritti magatah. Once a certain outcast, having beheld him by chance, came out with his ornaments abandoned, addressed him. Old relatives, I have attained the greatest satisfaction by your sight today.
So kings just walking around without his ornaments, his jeweled turban and stuff like that. And an old chum from the tribal village sees him. Hey, dude, why don't you give us some money? Let's see what happens.
Shrutvedam mantrina sarve vatayangata triyah shwapachoyam mahipala iti nishchitya dukhitah. Having heard this, all the ministers and the women who were at the windows were distressed, having concluded, this king is an outcast.
Yes. So this is kind of like a Matt Gaetz story, or who's on the Jeffrey Epstein lists.
Mm.
Oh my gosh. So they're all horrified because a low-class person was elevated to king. Now let's see what happens. Now, mind you, Gotti didn't look for the job. The elephant picked him up. Going on.
Tata prabriti nas prakshu tishtantam tam shavam yatha atha sarve vayam dirgha kalam shwapacha dushitaha prayashchittai na shadhayam pravishamau hatashanam iti nirniya sarvegni vivishu sahabandhuvihi. Thenceforward, they did not touch him, the living king, as if he were a corpse. Then all of them, having determined, we have been defiled for a long time by this outcast, we shall not become pure by expiatory acts. Let us enter into the fire. Entered into the fire along with their relatives.
So no amount of ritual baths or anything like that can purify them, because they've been hanging out, shaking hands and hugging an outcast. Only thing we can do is immolate ourselves. So they jump on the pyre, the funeral pyre. Going on.
Raja matva madartham hi deshenartho yamagatah iti vahnau anudvegam ajuhava nijam vapuhu. The king, having thought, it is indeed on account of me that this calamity has occurred in this country, sacrificed his body in the fire without trembling or fear.
So I'm the cause of this calamity. I'm going to kill myself. So he jumps on the funeral pyre. These guys are all kind of fond of annihilation. Going on.
Atrantare nalakshubhau gadimohat abuddhayat koham kimiva pashyami kim akarsham aham kila evam vicharayat trishcham udasthat udakantarat. In the meanwhile, Gadi, disturbed by the fire, woke up from his delusion. Who am I? What possibly do I see? What indeed did I do? Thus thinking variously, he got up from under the water.
So he comes out from underneath the water. All this took place. How long can a person hold their breath under the water? A minute, 2 minutes, maybe 3 maximum. He comes up out of the water and he's had this very, very trippy experience. What did it all mean? What's real and what's not real? Going on.
Mithya drishtasya satyata. Oh, sorry, section 2. Mithya drishtasya satyata. The reality of what was seen falsely. Cheto brahmatya nantasu bhranti dristishu dehinam iti matva stite tasmin ajagam priyotitihi kramat shayanamasadhya gadhi prapachyatam dvijam. The mind of the embodied ones or living beings wanders about in endless delusive perceptions or notions. Thus, having reflected, when he stood there, a welcome or dear guest arrived. Gradually seating him on a couch, Gadi asked that Brahmana as follows.
So he's begun to penetrate into the dream-like nature of worldly existence. It's all the guna and karma, the quality of the mind and the force of the past as it interacts with the greater karmic environment. You are not touched by it. Okay, so now he's back in his home and he's got a chum and they're gonna talk.
Kim Brahman Sankrisham Sattvam Kimiti Shramavasini Kimiti Shramavaanasi Brahmana. Why are you weak-bodied? Why indeed are you weary?
Now, who's saying that? The other dude to
He's asking the Brahmana.
Okay, so I guess the other guy's a little upset. Let's see what happens.
Atitiruvacha Kireshu Nyavasam Masam Tatraisha hi Kathashruta. The guest said, I lived in the land of the Kiras for a month, and there this story was heard.
So let's see what the story is that the guest relates to Gandhi. Going on.
Iha bhut Shwapacho Raja Varshanya Shtau Dvijottama Sa evante parignyata Pravishto Jwalanam Javat Tatha Dvijashata Niha Pravishtani Hutashanam. Excellent Brahmana. Here, an outcast was the king for 8 years. He was just found out or recognized at the end and entered into the fire in haste. So also 200 Brahmanas entered into the fire.
Yes. So this guest is saying this story that Gadi experienced when he was under the water for a minute or two happened up in Kashmir for 8 years. Now, what's the point here? It's to help us break down linear thinking. To break down our belief in the logical, linear cause and effect. It's all come about by the Lord's Maya. So we want to give up notions like, oh, 3 lifetimes ago, then 2 lifetimes ago, 1 lifetime ago, and now this one, and then, this sort of stuff. Another wonderful exercise. I think all of us have siblings, right?
Mhm.
Have you ever had a discussion with a sibling about a childhood event and their perception is completely different than yours?
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then you go to the parent, Mommy, when we were kids, did this happen or did that happen? And, oh, no, neither of that. It was blah, 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 blah. Have you had that experience? So which is real? Which is real? Doesn't matter. Sarvamaya. Sarvamana. That's all. Again, the only thing you will ever know for sure is a hum. This world is a great mystery. Going on.
इति श्रुत्वा ततो गत्वा प्रायश्चित् प्राय प्रायश्चित्तं विधाय च क्रमात् चान्द्रायणस्यान्ते पारणार्थ इहागतः श्रान्तोऽहम् उपवासेन नान्यदस्तीति कारणम्. Thus, having heard and then departed, and having performed expiation of the sin in the proper manner, I have come here for the conclusion of the fast at the end of the Chandrayana vow. I am weary with fasting. Surely there is no other reason for my weakness.
Yes. So Gyast is all very weak because he was one of the Brahmanas up in Kashmir, and rather than emulating himself, he fasted for a month. And that's why he's so weak. Going on.
Iti tenoditam shrutva vismayavishtamaनसः गाधिश्च चिन्तयामास madvrittanto yamidrishah. Thus, having heard what was told by him, Gadi, with his mind overcome by wonder, thought, this my history is such.
So, how is it that this actually happened? What I experienced when my head was under the water just for a minute or two. Wondrous is it. Going on.
अथ निर्गत्य स दृष्टम् पूर्णमण्डलमागतः तत्र दृष्ट्वा यथा पूर्वम् निजं स्वपच मन्दिरम् कीरमण्डलमासाद्य स्वानुभूतानि दृष्टवान्. Then, having gone out, he came to see the region of the Hunas. There, having seen his own house of the outcast as before, and having reached the territory of the Kiras, he saw the things experienced by him.
Yes. So this is a time warp. Again, for Gandhi, it was just a minute or two. And now he goes back and he sees all these events going back 8 years. Did it happen? I mean, longer than that. How long was he a village person? You know, with the family and the famine and everything going on.
Vismayokti pita shiraha dhatushcheshta paramrisham bhuyo gadhi tapaschakre tivram vilasya kandare agatya cha tapaprita uche chakra gadadharaha. With his head trembling with astonishment and reflecting on the deed of God Vishnu, Gadhi again performed penance intensely in the cave of a mountain.
So now,
It goes on. The bearer of the discus and the mace, or God Vishnu, satisfied with his penance of Gadhi and having come near him, spoke as follows.
so he's going to ask Vishnu, what the F happened going on?
Mama maya tvaya drishtva kimanyat avivanchasi Gadhirvacha tasya marma na janami brahma satyo bhavat katham. My illusion has been seen by you. What else do you wish for? Gadi said, I do not comprehend its secret. How did a delusion become real?
So it's 9, so we'll finish up the explanation by Lord Vishnu next time. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om.